I was in 7th grade when this happened, so I must have been about 12. Our middle school was one of those old brick buildings with long hallways that echoed with every step, the kind that always smelled faintly like pencil shavings, cafeteria food, and old mop water. It was a Thursday, early afternoon. The sky outside was gray, with one of those heavy clouds that makes everything inside feel a little dim and sleepy. We were in science class, waiting for the bell to release us for lunch. I remember clearly, our teacher, Mr. Goodman, was at the whiteboard drawing diagrams of the water cycle. He was one of those teachers who could make anything funny, even condensation, and most of us liked him. I was half listening, half staring out the window when the loudspeaker clicked on. That buzzing sound always jolted everyone for a second. We expected to hear the secretary's voice, or maybe an announcement about an assembly. Instead, it was the principal. His tone was calm but firm. "Attention all staff and students. We are now in lockdown. I repeat, this is a lockdown. Please follow all safety procedures." The room went quiet. Now, our school does lockdown drills maybe twice a year. Normally, someone would roll their eyes, whisper something about, "Ugh, not again," and the teacher would shut the lights off while we all shuffled to a corner. But there was something different this time. I could tell immediately from Mr. Goodman's reaction. He froze for a second, marker still in his hand, then dropped it and walked briskly to the door. He locked it, shut off the lights, and motioned for us to move against the back wall. His face was tight, not panicked exactly, but serious in a way that made my stomach sink. "Phones away," he whispered. No talking, no noise. We all slid down the wall, knees pulled up, trying to make ourselves small in the darkened classroom. The only light came from the faint glow of the cloudy sky seeping in through the blinds. At first, there was nothing but silence, the kind that makes you hyper-aware of every little sound. Someone's breathing, the hum of the lights cooling down, the faint creak of a chair. Then, faintly from the hallway, footsteps, slow, steady, not rushed, not running, just walking. Every head in the class turned toward the door. I could see the sliver of hallway through the narrow window in the doorframe, but nothing passed by. The footsteps stopped. For a moment, I thought maybe it was a teacher checking rooms. Then a knock. 3 soft taps on our classroom door. Knock, knock, knock. We all froze. Mr. Goodman didn't move. He crouched by the door, his hand hovering near the handle but not touching it. Then a man's voice. Calm, steady, too steady. "It's okay, kids. I'm here to take you to safety. Open up." Every single one of us looked at each other with wide eyes. None of us recognized that voice. It didn't sound like a teacher. The silence stretched on. Then the voice repeated, a little firmer this time. "Open the door. You'll be safe with me." Mr. Goodman whispered so quietly he could barely hear him. "Stay still, stay quiet." The voice outside the door kept repeating the same line, almost word for word, like he was reading from a script. "I'm here to get you out. Open the door. I'm here to get you out. Open the door." His tone never changed. Flat, controlled. That was when the doorknob rattled. The sound of the metal shaking filled the room, and I swear my heart jumped up into my throat. He twisted it once, twice. The lock held, but the sound of the handle straining against the doorframe was terrifying. Someone next to me let out a shaky breath, and I prayed the man outside couldn't hear it. Finally, the rattling stopped, but the voice whispered one last time, so softly it gave me chills. "I know you're in there." The moment that whisper slipped through a crack in the door, the entire class seemed to shrink into themselves. You could almost feel every kid's body tighten against the wall, as if making themselves smaller would somehow make them invisible. The silence that followed was suffocating. My ears were ringing from how hard I was straining to hear. Outside, the hallway felt alive, like every creak of the old building was amplified. Mr. Goodman stood crouched near the door, his hand resting on the floor for balance. I could see the beads of sweat glistening on his forehead, even in the faint gray light leaking through the blinds. His breathing was steady, but shallow, like he was forcing himself to stay calm. The footsteps started again, slow, faint, moving away from our classroom. No one moved. No one dared whisper. We just sat there, counting our heads. 10 seconds. 20. 30. A full minute. Then 2. But then another sound. This time it wasn't footsteps. It was the faint squeak of another door handle somewhere down the hall. The sound of a door opening, then closing. My stomach dropped. Whoever it was hadn't left. He was still in the building. A girl sitting next to me, Emily, mouthed the words, "What's happening?" at me. I shook my head. I didn't know. None of us did. The minutes dragged by. It could have been 10 minutes or 30. I honestly couldn't tell. Time felt warped in that dark classroom. Then, faintly, the intercom crackled again. All staff and students remain in lockdown. Do not open doors for anyone until given the official all clear. The message was short, but the principal's voice had an edge of urgency. It didn't calm us. It only confirmed that something was seriously wrong. After that announcement, the hallway outside our door stayed quiet for a long time. Too long. The kind of quiet that makes every sound, the scrape of someone shifting against the floor, the faint click of a phone accidentally lighting up, feel like it could give us away. At one point, someone's stomach growled, and a couple of kids stifled nervous giggles. The teacher's sharp glare shut it down instantly. I don't know how much time passed before we heard it again. Another knock. But this time, it came from further down the hallway. Not our door, but someone else's. And then that same calm voice. "It's okay. I'm here to take you to safety. Open up." We couldn't see it, but we could hear it clearly. Whoever he was trying different classrooms now. The knock repeated, louder this time. "It's okay. I'll get you out. Open the door." I swear, my heart was pounding so hard against my ribs that I thought it would echo across the room. We heard the sound of another doorknob being rattled. The metal clanging echoed down the hallway. Then another knock. One of the kids whispered, barely audible, "He's going room to room." And he was right. For the next several minutes, we sat there listening as that same steady voice moved along the hall. Sometimes it was a knock. Sometimes it was just the voice. "I'm here for you. Let's go. Open the door. You're safe with me." The repetition of it made my skin crawl. It wasn't just creepy, it was robotic, like he had rehearsed those lines, memorized them, and nothing else. Every time his voice grew faint, we'd breathe a tiny sigh of relief, only for it to return again at another door. At one point, the voice got closer again. The man passed right by our door, dragging his hand along the lockers as he walked. The metallic scrape echoed down the hall. He didn't stop this time. He just kept walking, slow and deliberate. I don't know how long we stayed like that. Time stopped making sense. My legs were numb. My back ached from crouching against the wall. But I didn't dare shift. Finally, after what felt like hours, we heard another sound. Not footsteps, not knocking. This time it was shouting. "Police, drop it. Hands where we can see them." The words echoed faintly down the hallway. My blood ran cold. Then came a heavy thud. Something slammed against the floor. More shouting. The muffled chaos of voices overlapping. And then silence again. We all stared at the door, waiting for someone to explain. But nothing came. No announcement, no all clear. Just silence. Minutes crawled by again. "Mister." Goodman motioned for us to stay put. Nobody argued. At some point, I must have dozed off, not fully asleep, just in that weird, half-aware state where your body shuts down, but your ears are still listening. Because when the sound finally came, it jolted me back like a bucket of cold water. A single, soft knock on our classroom door. And then that same calm voice. "It's okay now. You can come out." The second I heard that voice again, my whole body went rigid. It wasn't the police. It wasn't the principal. It was the same man. The same calm, steady tone as before. "It's okay now. You can come out." My heart sank. Whoever the police had shouted at earlier, it hadn't been him. Or maybe it had, but somehow he was still there, still trying. A kid 2 spots down from me whispered under his breath, almost inaudible, "No way." "Mister." Goodman pressed a finger to his lips, his eyes wide, warning us not to move. The man outside didn't knock again. He just stood there. I swear I could feel him, just inches from the other side of the door, breathing, waiting. Finally, after what felt like forever, his voice came again, softer this time, almost like a lullaby. "You don't need to be scared. I'm here now. I'll take you home." That last word, home, made my stomach twist. It sounded rehearsed, like something a parent might say, but there was nothing warm in it. It was hollow. The room was dead silent, except for one sound, a muffled sob. Emily, the girl sitting next to me, had buried her face in her knees, trying so hard not to cry, but it slipped out anyway. The voice outside stopped, and then in a tone that was almost cheerful, he said, "There you are." That was enough to send a wave of terror through the room. A couple kids gasped, others pressed their hands over their mouths. I clenched my fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. The doorknob rattled again, harder this time, metal clanging as he twisted it back and forth, faster and more forcefully than before. Mr. Goodman crouched low by the door, bracing himself against it even though the lock was engaged. His jaw was tight, his whole body tense like a coiled spring. Then came the pounding. Boom, boom, boom. His fist slammed against the door, rattling the frame. Each thud reverberated through the classroom, shaking the air inside my chest. "Open up." It was the first time his voice broke out of that calm, robotic tone. Now it was loud, harsh, commanding. Kids jumped, covering their ears, squeezing their eyes shut. A few of them started crying. I don't blame them. I wanted to cry too. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The pounding ceased. The rattling stopped. Silence again. We sat there in the dark, paralyzed. Minutes crawled by. Nothing. No footsteps. No voice. Just when I thought maybe he had finally gone, there was a new sound. Not at our door this time, but faintly farther down the hall. Another knock. Then the same voice calm again, almost gentle. "It's okay. Open the door." My skin prickled. He was doing it again, moving from room to room, repeating the same line as some kind of recording stuck on a loop. Only now, there was something worse about it, because we all knew he had been at our door. He had shouted. He had pounded. And now he was pretending again, putting that calm mask back on, like nothing had happened. At some point, Mr. Goodman whispered to us, "He's not staff. He's not with school. No matter what you hear, you do not open this door. Do you understand?" We all nodded, some more frantically than others. The man's voice echoed through the hall for what felt like hours. Sometimes distant, sometimes close, sometimes soft, sometimes pounding with fists and shouting. The cycle repeated, like he was trying every tactic he could think of. And then, just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, there was a sound I'll never forget. The jingle of keys. Someone was fumbling with the lock to our classroom. I swear my blood ran cold. I could see the handle jiggle, not like before when he was just rattling it, but like someone was actually trying to fit something into the lock. Mr. Goodman pressed his whole body against the door now, holding it with his shoulder, his muscles straining. His face was pale in the dim light. The keys scraped, clicked, but they didn't turn. Whoever it was didn't have the right one. Finally, after several 10 seconds, the sound stopped. And then, once again, that voice, "Don't worry, I'll get you out soon." After he said those words, the hallway fell silent again. But it wasn't the kind of silence that felt safe. It was heavy, charged, like the quiet before a thunderstorm broke. Every one of us sat frozen against the wall. Nobody even shifted. I was too scared to breathe too loudly, convinced even the smallest sound might draw him back. Then, somewhere in the building, a door slammed. The sound echoed down the hall. And for the first time since it began, we heard something that gave us a flicker of hope. Voices. Not his voice. Multiple voices. Firm. Commanding. Police. Clear this hallway. Check every room. Move, move, move. The words echoed through the building. The man outside our classroom went completely quiet. For a moment, I thought maybe he had run. Maybe it was finally over. But then came the footsteps. Fast, heavy, running. He wasn't leaving. He was sprinting. The sound of his shoes smacked against the tile as he bolted past our classroom. The police shouts grew louder, overlapping, chasing after him. Stop right there. Hands up. Get on the ground. The chaos reverberated through the school. Kids in my class clutched each other, whispering prayers, covering their ears, squeezing their eyes shut. My heart felt like it was about to pound out of my chest. Then, the sound of a crash. Something, maybe a door, maybe a window, shattered violently. The sharp crack of splintering glass echoed like a gunshot. For a second, everything was chaos. Police shouting, running, more crashing. And then, silence again. Dead silence. We all stared at each other in the dim light, waiting for someone to explain, for the intercom to finally give us that all clear. But nothing came. Minutes dragged by. Mr. Goodman didn't move from his position at the door. His face was pale, his body tense, like he was ready for the man to suddenly come back. Eventually, we heard footsteps again. These were different, slower, heavier, more deliberate. Then came a knock. But this time it wasn't soft. It was sharp, 3 firm raps. And then a new voice. This is the police. You're safe now. We're going room to room. Open the door. A wave of relief passed through the class. A couple of kids even whispered, "Thank God," under their breath. But Mr. Goodman didn't move. He crouched by the door and asked through the wood, "What's the code?" There was a pause. Then the voice repeated, "You're safe now. Open the door." Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. Mr. Goodman's jaw tightened. "No," he whispered to us. "Not yet." The knock came again, louder this time. I said, "You're safe now. Open the door." But the tone was wrong. Too forceful. Too demanding. That's when my stomach dropped. It wasn't the police. It was him. He had copied their tone, their words, even their rhythm, but he couldn't copy the details. He didn't know the code phrase. The class sat in horrified silence. Some kids shook their heads, tears streaming silently down their faces. Emily clutched her knees, trembling. Finally, after a long pause, the man outside whispered again. This time, just loud enough for us to hear, "You can't hide forever." And then the footsteps. Fast again, retreating down the hallway. We sat in paralyzed silence. Minutes turned into what felt like hours. Then, finally, the real intercom clicked on. All staff and students. The building is secure. Do not exit classrooms until officers escort you. This time, the relief was real. But it was shaky, fragile, like none of us fully believed it. When the police finally did open our door, real police this time, with radios, uniforms, and badges, some of the kids burst into tears. Others just sat there, dazed. We were escorted out in a single file line, hands visible, moving toward the gym where they were gathering everyone. As we passed the hallways, I caught glimpses of the chaos. Shattered glass near one of the side exits, doors wide open, lockers dented as if someone had slammed into them. But of the man himself, there was no sign. When we asked what happened, one of the officers just shook his head. "He's gone." Gone. They said he slipped out through a broken side window and disappeared into the woods behind the school. Despite the search, they couldn't find him. They told us he wasn't a parent. He wasn't a staff member. He wasn't connected to any student. He had just walked into the school, claimed he was there to pick up his child, and somehow got past the front desk. By the time anyone realized, it was too late. And the worst part, he never came back, never got caught. For all we knew, he was still out there, maybe watching, maybe planning again. The rest of that day feels like a blur, but certain details are burned into my memory forever. After they let us into the gym, we sat in silence in the bleachers while police officers and administrators paced the floor. Some kids were openly sobbing, clinging to friends or calling parents on their phones. Others were stone-faced, staring blankly at the floor like their brains had just shut down. I sat there in the middle of it, numb. My body was buzzing with adrenaline, but my mind was blank. I couldn't stop hearing that voice echo in my head. It's okay. I'm here to take you to safety. Open up. I'll take you home. There you are. Each phrase played on a loop, like a broken record I couldn't switch off. After what felt like hours, they released us one by one as the parent arrived. When my mom rushed into the gym, her face pale with fear, I remember collapsing into her arms. I wasn't even embarrassed. I didn't care that I was crying in front of everyone. For the first time all day, I felt like I could breathe again. But the fear didn't stop when I left school. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house made me jump. When the wind rattled the window, I swore it was him pressing his face against the glass. When the floorboards creaked, I imagined him standing outside my bedroom door whispering, "It's okay. Come out." For weeks afterward, the whole school was different. Extra security guards patrolled the halls. Every door had new locks installed. The front office got buzzer systems and cameras. Teachers kept their doors locked during class, even when there wasn't a lockdown, but none of that erased the memory of his voice. Sometimes in class, a knock on the door would make half the students flinch. One time, during a drill, when the principal knocked on the door to test a teacher, a kid screamed and had a panic attack. It was like the entire school was living in that man's shadow, even though he was long gone. And here's the thing that still unsettles me most. We never found out who he was. The police investigated. They checked nearby shelters, ran descriptions, even asked parents if they recognized him. Nobody did. He wasn't on record as a registered offender, at least not under the name he gave at the office. It was like he had appeared from nowhere, slipped into our school, and then vanished without a trace. That uncertainty ate at us more than anything, because if he'd been caught, we could have told ourselves, "Okay, it's over. He's locked away." But instead, we had to live with the knowledge that he could still be out there. Maybe he was someone's neighbor. Maybe he was walking down the same street as us after school. Maybe he was watching for another chance. For months, every time I left school, I scanned the crowd of parents waiting in their cars. Every unfamiliar face set my nerves on edge. Every time a car slowed near me while I walked home, I braced myself for a voice to call out. Sometimes I swore I heard it. A low, steady tone carried on the wind whispering, "I know you're in there." I told myself it was in my head. That was just my imagination replaying the trauma. But even now, years later, I'm not so sure. Because one night, maybe a year after it all happened, I was home alone. My parents had gone out to dinner. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when there was a knock at the front door. 3 soft taps. Knock, knock, knock. I froze. Then a voice muffled through the wood, calm and steady. "It's okay. Open up." I sat there, paralyzed, my heart slamming against my ribs. I didn't move, didn't breathe. After a long silence, I finally gathered the courage to peek through the peephole. There was no one there. To this day, I don't know if I really heard it or if my mind was just playing tricks on me. But sometimes, late at night, when I hear a noise outside or a knock at the door, I still half expect to hear that same voice whispering on the other side. "You're safe now. Come with me." And that's what makes it worse than any nightmare. Because at least with nightmares, you wake up. This wasn't a dream. It was real. And the man who pretended to be a parent during that lockdown, he was real too. And he's still out there, somewhere.